Hello mga katribo! Today's guest is a remarkable Filipino-American leader who has made a significant impact in the UK's social care and community development sectors. But before we introduce him to you guys, we would like to greet everyone, advance Happy New Year, Lunar New Year
Exactly.
to everybody, yes.
Right. Thank you
Okay,
for
so
reminding.
anyway, good afternoon again, everyone. We are delighted to have a very, very interesting and successful guest, Filipino-American guest here with us. And please do join us and be inspired.
Right.
Kim?
Right. As the managing director of Penrose Care, he pioneered the living wage movement in British social care, advocated for minimum wage enforcement in home care, and played a key role in revitalizing Belsize Village in North London. He also initiated the UK's al fresco dining movement. That's
Lovely.
interesting.
Yeah, in recognition of his extraordinary contributions, he was awarded the OBE, or Officer of the Order of the British Empire, by His Majesty King Charles III in February 2023 at Windsor Castle. Wow.
That's very nice.
What an achievement.
Exactly.
So without so much ado, let's all introduce our guest.
Right.
Kim.
Please join us in welcoming Robert Bob Stephenson, Padron,
Padron, yeah.
Padron, OBE. Welcome to
Welcome
the
to
show. Good
Spotlight,
afternoon.
Thank you
Bob.
so much. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, we are so proud that an American Filipino or Filipino-American received that prestigious award.
Yes.
Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I mean, I received an honor from His Majesty. Well, originally I got it from Her Majesty in June 2022 for the Platinum Jubilee of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And I received the actual medal from King Charles because, of course, she passed. I received it for work I actually did 10 years before I got the medal. And so it was really for two things. One, I started the living wage movement in UK social care, as you mentioned. Social care in the UK, which is the sector which cares for the elderly and the disabled, had traditionally been a sector which didn't treat its workers very well. And when I got involved in the sector 10 years before the award, I felt if you really want a sector that cares about the elderly and disabled, it has to be a sector that cares about its workers.
Right.
And so I started that, and a corollary to that is I got the legal minimum wage law enforced in 2014. That was through lobbying a particular committee in Parliament, which is the legislature in Britain. And that was successful, and that had a transformative effect on the sector. You had the worst baddies go out of business or sold. Sadly, the government amnestied the smaller baddies, which caused its own problems. But the most important thing is it really stopped that, getting the minimum wage law enforced in 2014. It stopped the race to the bottom culture in elderly care in the UK, and it allowed an ethical provider like Penrose Care, my company, to compete and thrive. And if it wasn't for that action I did in 2014, you'd have a lot of people still getting very poor wages in social care. I mean, home care specifically, which is caring for the elderly and disabled in their own homes versus a care home. It employs roughly 400,000 people, mostly women, in the UK. So it really helped a lot of people.
So you provide services in the comfort of their home.
Yes. So we're
Very
not a care
nice.
home,
Yes,
and I
very
much
nice.
prefer for people who can afford it. I much prefer being cared for in your home.
That's
Because
right.
at least I'm trying to think. Have I been to a care home abroad? I don't think so. But I've been to the nicest care homes in the UK, and it's still a care home. I mean,
Okay.
it doesn't have that kind of luxury hotel vibe that you.
But
you would
I'm
hope it would have.
wondering, Bob, what inspired you to put up Penrose? And also, what inspired you to advocate that minimum wage movement? Was there a...
That's something that really came back from when I was a child, or a teenager, really. So when I was a teenager, I used to volunteer for the labor unions, which are quite big in California, where I'm from. And in fact, I'm very proud that my grandfather, who is Filipino, and he's from Ilocos Norte, he was a farm worker while he was still working, and he was one of the original Filipino members of the United Farm Workers Movement, which is the main union for farm workers in America. It was a merger between Filipino farm workers and Mexican farm workers, and so there was already that culture of treating workers well, and so I was involved in the labor movement when I was a teenager up until when I graduated university, and so that kind of ethical ethos was always in my heart, and so when I got involved in business, so I entered running a social care company after being a stock analyst or an equity analyst, originally at Barclays Capital, then Merrill Lynch in London. And so I thought to myself, if I ever did run a business, I would want to run a business where I didn't just make money, but I provided good jobs and I slept well at night. When I speak to high school students in London, I always say, if you're a billionaire, but you can't sleep well at night, well, you're still poor.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, let's quote him on that. That's really nice. Okay, so please enlighten us. Your background is economics in Berkeley.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. And then you started in a investment company somewhere in Europe.
No, I didn't start an investment company. I did my graduate studies in Spain. I did a master's degree
in Spain.
economics.
Yes.
I fell in love with Europe. I had never been abroad from California.
This is after college. You went to Spain.
Yes, for my master's degree.
For master's.
And unfortunately, I'm very bad with languages. I only speak English. I'd love to learn Tagalog and Ilocano. I didn't learn Spanish, even though I'm from California. I took 3 years of it and lived there. But I fell in love with Europe, and so I wanted to stay in Europe. So I just applied for any job that gave you a visa. And this was, thankfully, it was before the 2008 financial crisis. So there were still jobs in finance to apply for. This was 2007.
So your first job in the UK?
Was at Barclays, which is a big bank.
Oh, yes.
And my first main role there was in their sovereign wealth funds team, and which was so pivotal for my life because my main client was Singapore, and I learned about.
But you said you never traveled to Asia before.
Exactly.
I hadn't. No, I never went to Asia to see them. I only saw them when they came to London. Yeah. So, no, my first time to Asia was last summer, visiting here in the Philippines.
Here in the
totally
Philippines.
changed my life. Why I'm here today. Well, we can speak about
Beautiful,
that later.
huh?
And
Yes.
where did you
Beautiful,
visit?
very
I mean, it's your first time in Asia, so you said.
Oh, last summer.
Yes.
So I had always wanted to come to the Philippines, mainly just from stories that my grandpa would tell me. So my grandpa's father, Vicente, he was a Carabao salesman in Baccara, Ilocos Norte, and so I always used to, dream of seeing caribou.
So you've seen Carabao?
I did now but not in Baccara, in Palawan.
Oh, Palawan.
Yeah, so-
it's near extinction.
So why
Yes.
do you want to see the carabao? What's with the animal?
Well, I love animals. I
Okay.
mean, and that definitely comes from my Filipino grandfather because he lived to be 101. And
Oh, wow.
up to his death, he had about 50 cats. He had a few dogs.
No carabaos.
Many chickens. No carabaos. Sadly, no carabao in California.
Yeah.
I noticed
Rabbits.
Trees, chicken, cats,
Cats.
but no carabao.
No carabao.
No carabao. No carabao. And
anyway.
so I went to a cousin's wedding last summer in
Right.
Boracay. My first time in Asia, my first time in the Philippines. Totally fell in love with it. But what saddened me was my aunt, she went to Baccara, I think before or after the wedding.
The wedding.
I think before, and she was telling me, I'm sorry to tell you, little Robert is what they call me in my family. She said, there's no carabao left in Baccara. And I said, what, no carabao? She says, yeah, they just use tractors now or machines.
Right,
And so I was
yes.
quite sad about that. And I went to Baccara for the first time last week, and it's true, there are no carabao left. At least
that's sad.
if they're there, I didn't see them.
Oh,
But
well.
I just returned this morning from a few days in Palawan, and thank heavens there's a lot.
Oh,
there.
yes. Oh,
And
yes.
I got this,
Congratulations.
yeah, and I got this gorgeous video of a farmer, using the carabao to till the soil, and it was beautiful. And I thought, oh, it's a childhood dream come true. And
Okay, so going back to his work,
Please.
Yeah.
because going back to his
That's the
work
side,
and his
yes.
business, because for me it's very inspiring.
Yes.
And the mere
interesting
fact
too.
that he received recognition no other than from the royal family.
The royal
it's really
family.
OBE. It's really big. So, what made you feel that you are giving, having an impact in your business? How do you think that you are giving or having an impact.
Yeah, and when?
Yeah, and
you know,
because you see, before you answer, Robert, I just would like to explain that you see, he was an economic graduate.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, he went on investment,
Yes.
and now he's having, he started a social care business.
Yes, in the UK.
And entirely, you see, it has no connection.
Yes.
But what made you decide on that, and how did you feel that you're already making an impact and enjoying or having satisfaction on the initiatives and the journey that you are in now?
Well, I would say, generally speaking, yeah, there isn't a great connection, but there is a tangential connection. So, when I was in university, I worked for an epidemiologist. I didn't do any of the healthcare stuff.
How did you work for? I was about to ask that.
All I did for her is I put the citations at the end of the papers.
Ah, okay.
That's all I did. So no actual science,
Okay.
but it was on my CV. So when I was at Barclays and the financial crisis did hit, and thankfully I kept my job, a miracle. Barclays bought Lehman North America, and they didn't buy Lehman Europe. Lehman collapsed in 2008. But they poached the workers from Lehman Europe, from which they got my future boss from Lehman, and Barclays was a debt house, so they didn't have a stock business, and so they built a stock business from the skeleton of Lehman, and I guess because I had some tangential healthcare on my CV, HR was like, Bob, you're going to be in the new healthcare team, and so I covered health services and devices.
That's the
and
connection.
that's how I learned about
That's the
the
connection,
crisis, the real, I mean, severe.
No, I
It's hard to say
understand.
how bad of a crisis social care was back then, because the worst of it has been resolved by me. and how I had the kind of daringness to just go into a sector with the likelihood of probably losing all my money, because you usually don't go into a sector and say, well, I'm going to have a higher cost base by paying my workers better. But it's something I really believed in. And
What was the challenges when you were starting?
the main challenge was not the paperwork. I mean, I'm pretty good with paperwork. I mean, that's when you're a stock analyst, you do numbers all day.
Yeah,
with
Yes.
so
a spreadsheet.
paperwork was not a challenge.
Paperwork is fine. It was the level of criminality in the sector itself, which I did not. I knew on paper there's a lot of criminality in the sector, a lot of non-compliance with the labor laws. But it wasn't until I really got into the sector to see how pervasive it was. I mean, the statistics are hard to know for sure, but the amount of providers not paying the minimum wage back in 2012 was anywhere from 50% to 80%, possibly more. And so if you entered a sector like that and you were like, well, not only am I going to comply with the law, but I'm going to pay more and provide more than the labor standards which exist, you're at a significant disadvantage. And so the first real challenge was on the political side. So I had to really lobby the government to enforce this law, and they didn't want to. So that was the crazy thing. And I was like, what is going on here? I mean, I thought, being
But
American,
there was already a law. They just have
there
to
was a law.
enforce
Yeah,
it.
the law was put in place in 1999. It was enforced in many sectors, just not social care. And
okay.
so, and there's many reasons.
How long did it take before you got the nod of all these?
So 2013 was when I was kind of lobbying all the wrong people, which was the actual regulator, the government itself, no interest in solving the problem.
So what was
So
the?
what happened was, and thank heavens, I sometimes remember things I read in the newspaper, not always, but I had really started brainstorming. Okay, what do I do? Because there's no real anti-corruption police in the UK like there is in America. In America, we have this law enforcement entities. They're called inspector generals. So similar to the ombudsman's here. So when an agency is misbehaving, you go to the inspector general, and they'll.
Please hold. Bob, don't forget what you're going to say.
Yeah,
the director
please.
is already
Queuing us.
But you see, mga kachibo, this is really very interesting. We just started. There are more information to come. So please pause for a while. We'll be back after a short break.
This break is brought to you by Bayad Center. Hashtag bigger, better, younger bayad, and you can buy it all. Meralco, ang liwanag ng bukas. SM, we've got it all for you. Smart, live more today. Union Bank, it starts with you.
Tune in to Daily Tribune's show aimed at addressing the needs and problems of our OFWs from different corners of the globe. Hear about their plights and success stories every Tuesday and Thursday, 3 p.m. only on Daily Tribune's Facebook page and Tribune Now on YouTube.
Straight Talk dives deep into pressing issues of leadership, politics, business, and more. Engage in insightful conversations with industry shakers, government leaders, and trailblazers every Wednesday at 10 a.m. only here on Daily Tribune's Facebook page and Tribune Now in YouTube.
Utol, once just a colloquial term for a brother or sister. Today, the same term stands for a better option to your transportation needs. Unified Transport Operations League, or better known as Utol, was established to give you an alternative to ride-hailing, with the concept of availing the service with care and compassion, as if it was rendered by your own sibling. Now, who would you prefer to drive you home? Utol, the ride-hailing app to consider.
Mga ka-Tribu, we're back here with, of course, Bob. And, he has been talking about his journey, the challenges, and why he's successful now. That's why I said, stay tuned, because you will be more inspired. So we were talking about his challenges earlier on, and now we would like him to continue. My question was, other than the challenges, how did you get people?
The right people.
The right people, and what was the challenge, or when you were hiring people and when you were getting clients?
So fortunately, in the neighborhood that we opened, which is Belz's Village, which also became very well known for my community work later on, I had already lived there for 2 years. And before that, a lot of my friends lived in that neighborhood, so I already had some local relationships. So I knew some local elderly people from church, and they were the ones who recommended me some initial first staff. And I'd say, 12 years later, we really have two pathways of hiring staff. It's either through the ether, which is always very risky. That's like, recruitment pages, speculative applications. And then we have people referred from existing staff, and they tend to be our best. And that's really the tried or true way, is because it's a care home. You can deal with a little less great people because you'll have a supervisor on staff. You have the other people looking at what's going on. In home care, where it's one-on-one, you need to really trust the person. They need to be amazing. And they have to really have that caring vocation, which you have so common in at least the Filipino American community in California, where like my aunt and so many of my relatives are nurses. But you really want that. And unfortunately, not everyone's Filipino, so not everyone has that kind of natural culture of hospitality. And so you really need to be careful. And I would say, recommendations is the best way. Not scalable for a very large people-intensive business, but for a company like us, which focuses really on quality, more of like a private client side type of business, it works very well.
Yes, and I want to know, you revitalized the Bell size, right? And then the al fresco dining room. So can you tell us?
I'd love to tell that story, because in the UK, when people meet me, they always think I got my OBE for that work. Because a lot of people don't know me from my work in social care, and they know me for the work I did.
Because of the al fresco.
Yes, because it became so popular. So what happened was, I had been operating in Belz's Village since 2012. Sadly, from 2014 onwards, it really encountered a blight, which you see quite often, not just in Britain, around the world, mainly because of online shopping. You see shops struggle, and often they don't come back. And so from 2014 onwards, shops just kept closing and closing and closing. And coupled with that, there was no sense of community, so the village just kept getting. And when I say village, it's actually a suburb of London. It's just very close to central London, just on the north side of central London. It just got dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. I mean, litter was everywhere. And the village square, which and
Used to be?
Common Sense would be used as a community hub, was used as a rubbish pile for the local businesses, and it was quite disgusting. And in 2018, I was sitting with another business owner, Aya Kazal. She owns a nail salon, Canadian, and we were having lunch at a local Lebanese restaurant in Belz's Village, small business. And the son of the owner came by and he said, "Oh, look, it's the local Chamber of Commerce." And then we thought, he was joking, but we really thought, well, why don't we try to do something about this? And I did actually have, thank heaven, some experience with community revitalization back from university, because I told you I used to work with labor unions.
Labor union, yes.
And so through that kind of work, I became quite well known with the local municipality when I was in Berkeley, and they put me on a board. First, a tax board, very boring. But then
We don't want to touch that.
But then they put me on a community revitalization board, which was a board responsible from the government side to revitalize a neighborhood, a historical neighborhood. So I did have some, rudimentary knowledge of how to do it. And by October 2018, we thought, let's do it. So we set up a Chamber of Commerce, quite different than the ones you see in the rest of London. In London,
So you set up the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and about why I'm always doing these things. I was thinking about this when I was here in the Philippines, because it really got me reflecting about my, my family history.
Roots.
And one thing my father used to always tell me, and it might sound somewhat demeaning, but I think it's actually a compliment. He used to tell me all the time. He told me this story. He said, and I think he was trying to instill in me a good work ethic. He said, if there's a job in the sewer at 4 a.m., only the Filipinos will show up. And I thought to myself, that's a good thing. And so anytime I see something to do, I say yes. And social care, for instance, it's not a glamorous sector.
Yes, of
I mean, when I
course.
got into social care, I was at a meeting with their local municipality, with other providers, and they told me, in the UK, care workers looked even beneath working at a fast food place, or even, it's really considered one of the lowest professions. And I thought, I don't care. I don't care. It's an important profession. Morally, it does something so important, and it employs so many people who are quite poor and who don't need to be abused. They need to be cared for, just like their clients. And so, so that's how I got it. I always say yes to everything. So. And I don't always know what I'm doing. Yeah, and I don't always know what I'm doing, but I just kind of go with it.
So what happened when you revitalized the
Belarus.
So we started first with marketing, social media marketing.
The social media.
Yeah, so in 2018, it was still very possible to get a lot of organic traction. We didn't have to pay. We did pay some money. But back to the setup, because this is important, because this is why we succeeded where a lot of Chamber of Commerce don't succeed, is you really have two models of chambers of commerce in London. I don't know about how they work here in the Philippines. It's either membership based, so just constant. I was on a chamber of commerce like this before this in the greater neighborhood, always chasing for membership fees, not really doing anything, but chasing for membership fees. So I didn't like that model. There's another model, which is they're called business improvement districts. So they're private entities which collect a tax on the local businesses. As you can imagine, they tend to get a lot of money and just sit on it and not do much. So they're not very effective either. So I prefer a model where me and Aya, her business, we just funded everything ourselves. And if other businesses wanted to join us, they could.
So what happened to the center that was disgusting?
So the story. So we use a model, and this is a model that anyone can use here in the Philippines, anywhere in the world. It's from a Danish architect who's specializes in revitalizing communities. He says, people, places, and buildings. So first you need to get the people behind you. So that's what we did first. We used social media not to sell the local businesses, because by then, we had a 20% vacancy rate. It was quite bad. But we did have something special. The buildings were pretty, and the businesses were almost all small businesses, all but one. And that's quite unique in London, where most high streets are just filled with chains. So you get one high street, you get the same thing as the next one. So what we did is our marketing focused on showing the human side of the business owners, and therefore not really selling their service or product, but creating a connection between the local community. Because the main reason the local businesses were were failing is because the locals weren't shopping at them. So we just had to get the local neighborhoods to shop in the area, and then also in the
You got
surrounding
the
neighborhoods.
support of all these businesses.
And they came along as well. So and that worked, and footfall started to go up by the end of the next year, and things stabilized.
Okay.
And then what happened in 2020, where we already had this kind of sense of community built, a local resident.
That was during the pandemic already.
Yeah, so now we're coming to the pandemic.
Yes.
So the pandemic hit. We locked down, I think, in was it March or April 2020? I can't remember exactly. And a local retiree, Phil, he came to me and Aya because we're already quite known for getting the footballs back, and he was like, "Can you guys set up this alfresco dining scheme, which is already happening?" In the U.S. You have them in BGC. I see on the road.
yes.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes, yes.
I'm
So
sure in hot
many.
countries they have them a lot.
Even
But
some malls now.
Yeah.
They set it
but
up.
before July 2020 in the UK, before a law called the Business Plan Act 2020, you couldn't have a scheme on public land like this for more than 14 days. And so he said, can you set one up, and it will last longer than 14 days, essentially. So we set it up, and while everyone was kind of just like depressed during the pandemic,
Yes.
we were working behind the scenes, getting the local council, the local municipality to support us. They were initially very opposed to it, because the thing with governments, if you do something new, they always say no. So, and one politician, he said, Bob, he said, this was a few years later, he said, Bob, the reason why everyone eventually listened to you is because you told a good story. And the story became true. The story became true. So eventually the council did approve it. It opened on July 4th, 2020. Within 2 weeks, it was at full capacity. So, and then combined with that, I cleaned up the square. So the local municipality.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, so
what
the
happened
rubbish
in
mound,
square.
the recurring rubbish mound on Belz's Terrace, the square in Belz's Village, it had been there for at least 10 years. And every time you'd ask the local council, can you get rid of this? They said it's impossible. Okay, I got rid of it. Right, I got rid of it. It was very, yeah, it's a great, I know.
That's why you cannot blame people if they think that you got the OBE because of that.
Yes, yeah, so I got rid of the rubbish mound.
Revitalizing and,
And,
promoting al
yes.
fresco.
Yeah, so, and I did this all for free. I was a volunteer, so I got rid of it. It wasn't very complex. I won't go into details of how I got rid of the mound, but I got rid of the mound, and I fought for 2 years to have 4 bins with the local authority. I got 4, because originally the local authority gave me permission to put 4 Euro bins near the village square, so businesses can put their waste in there. And the foxes, we have a lot of foxes, don't rip up the bags. Because before that, it was standard. The businesses, they put their waste in a bag and they put it on the pavement.
How is it now?
It's very clean.
Oh,
It's
wow.
very, in fact, we're often commented to be the cleanest neighborhood in London. Which is
Wow. I'll
unfortunate.
visit
Which is
that.
unfortunately a low bar, but
I'll visit that. But, when you were called, going back to the award, when you were called and was informed that you will receive that
Yes.
award, what did you feel? What did they say?
Yeah, and I want to know, how did you know that you will be recognized?
you get a letter from the cabinet office. So the cabinet office is like, you have the prime minister, and he has like the functionaries beneath him. That's the cabinet office. It's like the central government office. You get a letter from the cabinet office. So the honors in the UK, they actually come from the government in the name of the monarch. So in the name of the king. Now the king can give his own honors, like the Royal Victorian Order, Order of Bath. No, not Order of Bath. I'm not an expert on honors, so
It's okay.
I'm gonna leave it there.
It's
But
all right, that's all right.
I know the Royal Victorian Honor.
So how
he
did
can
you
give.
feel?
I felt amazing. I mean, I really, because I always, so I wasn't raised by my father's family. I was raised by my mother, who's a white American.
Yeah,
we
it
grew-
shows with your features.
Yeah, and we, I by American standards grew up quite poor, and I always saw myself as really just, kind of a lower class American. And so when I got this, I was like, oh well, I guess
Really?
maybe I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not really the low class American I thought I was anymore. And it's quite surreal. And I was so happy because I always told my dad's sister, my Filipino aunt, who's a nurse, you gotta travel. And she always, like many Filipino Americans, always working, constantly working. She finally retired
how
right
old is she?
before. I think she's in her 70s.
Oh,
now.
she finally retired. Did she follow? Did she start traveling as you advised?
She does now, yes. She's come here. She went to Japan. She's been to Mexico, so she is traveling now. But the best thing is soon after retirement, she came So after I got the award in June
went to London.
2022, my investiture was February 2023. She came to London, and she loves the royal family. And so I thought, what a great treat for my aunt, because my knowledge of the royal family really came from my aunt. Because when I was a kid, she had all these magazines about Princess Diana, and that was as a kid how my knowledge of the royal family. And she knows so much about them. I mean, we went to Windsor Castle. I didn't even know what Windsor Castle looked like, and she was telling me what the rooms are, and I was like, oh my gosh, you could be a tour guide here.
As a Filipino American, how did it impact you as a person? I mean, the type of that kind of acknowledgement, honor, as you may.
I thought it was very special because even though, like, by Filipino standards, my great grandfather may have been considered wealthier in his hometown, if Baccarat Loco Sorte, by international standards they weren't wealthy. So the fact that he sent his four sons to Hawaii in 1927 as laborers, which to him was still that's a good job, right? Because you're a laborer in America, so you're paid more. I thought, thank you to my ancestors, right? Because if it wasn't for them who went traveled to another country, and then I traveled to another country, you know, that recognition would have never occurred. And these people I helped, 400,000 mostly poor women, was really a very moving achievement for me.
Other than that prestigious award, Bob, what else do you get as an awardee of recipient
like
of an OP?
Benefits or something like that.
I mean, well,
Do you have a free pass to?
well, yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's because I'm Catholic, and the UK is officially it's an Anglican country.
Yes.
So the benefits, if you're Catholic, are not really there because the benefits are you can get married in St. Paul's Cathedral, which is Anglican. I think you can get baptized there. Not really things useful for me, but I think what's important is that at least in the UK, when you have an honor, people respond to you quicker. Right? If I email someone, whereas maybe they thought, who's this, guy emailing me, stop littering. Now they stop littering. I'm quite well known for telling people to not litter, which is
nice.
why
Really
I'm quite
nice.
impressed by quite a lot of the municipalities here in the Philippines, because the Philippines isn't it's not a high income country yet, but it at least in some of the municipalities it has the Singaporean culture already there, and so the building blocks. So I loved when I was in Palawan, all the don't litter signs, and it was for the most part quite clean. I mean, not perfect in some places, but all in all, in Puerto Princesa and El Nido, very very clean.
Have you visited Singapore also?
I've not visited Singapore yet,
You should.
and therefore I've been telling my friends since I went to Bonifacio Global City
it's
the first time
like that.
in November. It's the best municipality I've been to in my life.
Yes.
And I can't compare it yet to Singapore because I've not been to Singapore.
Well, here in the Philippines, we have clean, especially provinces.
Yeah.
yes.
Very clean. You'll be surprised when you go to provinces. It's really
Baccarat
clean.
was very clean. Baccarat
That's
was very
very
clean.
Yes.
Yes.
It's clean.
Yes.
But yeah, I know there was one city because I do follow the Filipino news. I forgot what city it was. It got like the cleanest city in the Philippines ranked. I don't remember what it was, but I love that, and I love the fact that people care about their areas here, because in the West now it's gotten.
You're brought up like Americans, although you have Filipino roots.
Yeah.
Yes.
But when if you will compare, or have you ever tasted Filipino dishes?
Of course, yeah.
So what's your favorite?
I grew up with Filipino food. Well, I don't know what it is in Tagalog, because I told some people here what it was. We called kabatiti with shrimp, but it's a lofa pad in English. I don't know if it's a common vegetable outside of Ilocos, but it's there's a vegetable you used to wash yourself called a lofa.
Lofa, yeah.
Yeah, but we eat it. We eat it in Ilocos.
Oh.
Okay.
And it's my favorite vegetable with shrimp. And
I think it's the
Oh
upo.
wow!
The upo.
I think it has
we call it kabatiti.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
I think that's where the
Anything
rupa,
else?
yeah.
Yeah, and malunggay.
Malunggay.
Yeah.
That's very healthy.
Yes.
it's very healthy.
And all my relatives always said that's why my grandpa lived so long, probably.
Do you really eat malunggay?
Yeah, we ate malunggay at my dad's house. So I was at my dad's house every weekend. And because my mom moved everywhere, it was really my dad's family which provided a sense of stability. And where I really realized a lot of my values came from. So values which I always thought were American. Until I came here, I thought, no, they're actually Filipino. Like, one thing I love is there's this great new kind of social media channel called the Filipino Story, and it's wonderful because you know how I was saying when you want to improve something, you got to start with the people, and when you watch it, you really feel like I'm proud to be Filipino, right? And I think he's really trying to start that sense of pride in the diaspora to get people to remember where they came from, and then you get to the fix the places, fix the buildings, you know, as the Danish Jan Gehl says. But in that TV show, they mention about when someone comes to your house, you give them your bed. That's something I had always done, and I didn't know that was a common kind of Filipino thing. So they're traits I picked up from my grandparents that I would have never.
We call it bayanihan.
Yeah, oh yes, I love that
Brotherhood,
concept.
like that.
Yes, and that's what I really brought to Belza's Village, because you know now we have, it's not just businesses that volunteer for the business association. We have over 30 local residents that volunteer. They help us pick up litter, and then
How often do they do that?
well, our most active volunteer aside from me, so I do it every day when I'm back at work. But we have this Japanese volunteer, Alice. She does it every Wednesday.
Oh, nice.
And then the other volunteers, when it comes to litter, do it more occasionally. For the gardening volunteers, when it's the spring and summer, they're there pretty much every day. And the gardening volunteers, it's a lot easier for them to get volunteers. But
Okay, so your business, Penrose, is pretty much established. But social care, or like any other business, you face constant challenges. Given the current situation, what challenges do you face in managing Penrose?
well, the first challenge, of course, is that the sector. Sorry, I choked on the coffee. The sector itself is dysfunctional, so it's a broken market. So if you look at the largest providers, they're losing a lot of money, and that's because if you look up the makeup of the market, which roughly 80% publicly paid, 20% privately paid, the rates for both markets are too low. So if you're losing money on the 80%, you're not making enough money on the 20%.
Water, please.
20% to make up those losses. So the sector as a whole is dysfunctional, and I have we have in the UK, we always have these inquiries, and when there's a crisis in the UK, they have an inquiry and then they don't do anything. So I've participated in so many of these inquiries the past 12 years. I'm kind of sick of it, but I have given the government advice of how to fix the market. They're not interested, and so we would never expand beyond our niche. So my options really in that sector are I just kick back and relax on the profits we make, or I do something else. And you know, I'm more of the person who likes to do other things. And since I discovered the Philippines, you know, I'd like to come and explore.
There is always a reason, you know, why you're here.
Yes, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I believe that. But you know, how do you see yourself or Penrose in maybe 5 or so years?
5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So I would think I would keep our original business in London, which is, you know, caring for that niche high net worth market, because that's where the good jobs are. And then I would use the profits to expand. And if there's no expansion opportunities, then just take the money out. But I came back here in November because one of my good friends that I work with in Merrill Lynch, he's here now. So he used to work. He's British, and he's a wonderful man, retired Navy Special Forces doctor. Sat behind me at Merrill Lynch he was a pharmaceuticals analyst, an actual doctor, and he's so hardcore. You know, even though the job we had, you'd start at 6 a.m., finish at midnight. On the weekends, you'd go be a trauma surgeon at some of the most dangerous hospitals.
Wow.
And over the years, he would come work here. So after banking, he worked, I think, in private equity. I don't remember. He worked in
Did he tell you
many
why
cool
he's
jobs.
here?
For work.
No, what I'm saying, I know there will be a lot of
healthcare type of work.
Okay.
But he'd always tell me how much wonderful it is here. And I'd say, yeah, I know, I really want to go sometime, but I just never had the time, which is why I never came to Asia. I never took 2-week holidays, which I think you really need when you come here from the West.
Are you considering putting up a business here in the
Yes.
Philippines?
Yeah, so when I tell him in last summer, I said, Dr. Bennett, I said, I love
Hi,
it.
Dr. Bennett.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Dr. Bennett will watch this, Dr. Stuart Bennett from the Medical City. I messaged him and said, I love it here. I feel at home. And he says, well, you know what? I'm moving there in October because I'm about to become the group CEO of the Medical City, which is the biggest private healthcare
Yes,
operator here in the Philippines. And he took up the job in October, and so I came in November. Not just to say hello to him, but also to explore an idea, which is what's the feasibility of convincing foreigners to retire here? You know, similar to like in Cyprus, you already have the SRRV visa, so there's the infrastructure is
Yes,
there.
yes.
And now it's really just about getting them here and providing them services when they're younger, before they really need care, because you want to provide jobs for the local Filipinos. And then when they're older, to provide them the type of social care we provide in the UK. That would be my idea. And so when I came here, I met with many people, and I did feel that eventually that is a business that would be viable. And that's what I would like to.
I just
very
would like
nice.
to know, Kim. You know, basically, you have Filipino roots, but basically you're American because you're raised in the U.S. and
Yes.
then you stayed decades
Yes.
in Europe.
Yeah.
The first time you're here, what was your impression? Have you had any expectations?
I'm not the person. I'm not really much of a thinker. You know, maybe I seem like I'm more of a doer, which is probably why I say yes to everything. You know, I'm also you know, a volunteer.
cannot forget that.
I'm
You
also
said-
a volunteer cop. You know, I don't care about risking my
Yes.
life. You know, like my grandpa. You know, he went to go fight in World War II. I'm sure he didn't think much about it. He said his country is under attack. He came back. Well, I mean, I'm maybe an expat because I never really felt like I was at home maybe in America, and that's probably why I moved abroad. And even in the UK, even though, you know, I'm a citizen there now as well since 2014. I mean, I feel at home as in a physically home, but not spiritually. I don't feel maybe at home. But when I came here for the first time last summer, I felt, well, this is my home. This is my home,
wow.
and I thought, you know, these are my people. I mean, I love, speaking of the Filipino story, I love, there's this
Have you
saying,
tried to, I know you said you're not good in languages,
Yes.
but have you tried learning anything in Tagalog?
oh, only like Salamat Po,
Salamat.
right? No, I will learn, but I will learn at some point. But what I love from the Filipino story is, I think you say it's, you know, we're one people on the same journey, on the same boat. I love that.
yes,
I love
yes.
that saying from it.
That
And I think-
attitude, yes.
And I think that's true, because when I'm here, even though, you know, my grandfather left Baccarat almost 100 years now. It was 1927.
1927.
I still feel that this is, you know, this is where I come, and I actually feel like, you know,
The roots.
if I could, I'd just stay here for the rest of my life.
Well, why
But-
not? If you can put up a business,
Yes.
Yeah.
You can
provide
run,
good services for our people,
Yes.
employ more people, then why not?
Yes.
And the
And you
same
can
kind
sleep soundly at night.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, my connection here is so strong that I started to do exactly what I did when I got to the UK, is start trying to make the place better. So when I was on my last trip, I saw on Facebook volunteer litter group in Intramuros. So they do it every Sunday at 8 a.m. So I've been volunteering there. And in November, I met the Secretary of Tourism, Christina Frasco.
Yes.
Glamorous, wonderful
Oh,
lady.
yes.
Very smart. She's amazing.
Yeah, of course.
And I told her that, you know, after our meeting, which was more about tourism and social care and medical tourism, I told, you know, I was an Intramuros volunteering, and I told them I'm going to bring them some high-end British litter equipment, because
Oh, wow.
they use brooms mainly,
Oh,
which are
yes,
great for
yes,
most of the environment, but they're not good for the tree trunks. So there's these big trees around Intramuros, and some of the litter had got stuck in the trees, which you can't really get from the broom. So I brought these litter pickers and bag
Well,
hoops.
thank
I
you.
donated them
Thank you so much.
when I went a week or two ago, and I volunteered again. That was fun, and also in Bonifacio Global City, they have a volunteer stray cat group called Cats of
Oh, yes.
BGC.
Yes, we
and
have
they
that.
and they really have the kind of Bayanihan spirit, I think,
Okay.
because it's a large group, and they do amazing work. And the cats, they really make BGC even more wonderful, because they're so cute, and I know they keep the mice down. And I have so much fun looking after them. I already did one shift, and I'm going to do a shift tomorrow morning. So.
Yeah, well,
And
you
BGC is
know,
like Singapore. If
yeah.
you go to Singapore,
Oh well, I need to go to Singapore, because I love Lee Kuan Yew.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to know that you somehow felt that the Bayanihan spirit is still here in the
Yes.
Philippines.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, it is. So, do you have any parting words? You know, we can. I won't mind talking here. You know, the whole day. I enjoy talking.
But we
to Bob.
can't.
But of course, we can't. But you know, any parting words? What will you say to young ones who are still working on their journey? Any inspiring
way
words?
up or something.
Well, one, I would say if an opportunity comes to you, don't think much about it. Just say yes. Just give it a try.
I like that.
Give it a
I
try.
like that. Let's write
That's
that.
why he's a doer.
Yeah. Number two, although I mean, one of the main reasons I think that the Philippines is not just on the path to being a middle power, but a great power, it's because here in the Philippines, people are still happy.
Yes.
Oh, a lot
we
of people,
agree.
yeah.
They're still happy.
Regardless of the situation.
Yes,
They find happiness
in the
in
West.
any
You have
situation.
people who are rich and they're sad, so they're not rich, right? And so that's the thing as well. I mean, thankfully, one thing I've, which really keeps me always at peace is my faith, my Catholic faith, and I would say as the Philippines gets richer, don't just become like one of these, the West where you lose touch with what matters, because then if you become like the West and you're rich and sad, what was the point? What was the point?
Spirituality is
Yeah, what
still-
was the point?
Nurture your spirit.
Yes, and number three, I would say for those in the diaspora, I think it's time to start looking at the Philippines as the next opportunity, and then just to come home, and then
Come home.
from the public leaders here is if you really do want the Philippines to jumpstart to be a real economic miracle, similar to Israel, is embrace the diaspora and provide the legal framework to make it easier for them to come back. And I think what may take 50 years may take 25. So if you'll jumpstart your economic development. So I think it's a great blessing the Philippines has is the diaspora and its people here.
Well,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much,
so
Bob.
much. Just
Yeah.
very nice. We wish you good luck and please take care
And
because
please,
we need
yeah,
you.
and
Yeah.
whenever you want to convey something, send a message or anything, feel free to contact us.
Thank you.
We have a home here.
Well, I will be back often, and hopefully someday I'll be here for good.
All right.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank
because
you.
we need good people. Of course.
Like you.
Good people is always welcome.
Right. And
Okay.
that wraps up today's episode of Spotlight. We hope you enjoyed hearing from Robert Bob Stephenson Padron, OBE, and gain insights into his incredible journey and contribution to social care.
Indeed, an honor to our country. And
Yeah.
we welcome you back here, Bob. And mga kachibo, if you missed any part of today's conversation, don't worry. You can catch the full episode online.
That's right. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Until next time, take care and stay inspired. This is Kim Sancha.
And this is Chingkee Mangcucang.
And this has been your
Spotlight.
This public service announcement is brought to you by Meralco.
Alam nyo ba kung saan napupunta ang binabayad nyo sa Meralco? Dito sa series na ito, isa-isahin natin yan para maipaliwanag ko po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Joe Saldariaga ng Meralco Corporate Communication Office. Alam nyo ba na pag nagbabayad kayo ng bill sa kuryente, nasa mga 20% lang on the average ang napupunta sa Meralco? Sa katotohanan, nahahati sa iba't ibang components ang inyong electricity bill. Kumbaga parang pizza lang yan. Kasama sa binabayaran natin ay ang generation charge na napupunta sa generation companies o mga nag-ooperate ng power plants, transmission charge na napupunta sa system grid operator ng Pilipinas, na National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, at iba-ibang charges na napupunta sa gobyerno. Tulad po ito ng mga subsidies, taxes, universal charges at fit-all. Kung tutuusin, tulad nga nabanggit ko, nasa around 20% on the average ang kabuang bill ang binabayad sa Meralco sa pamamagitan ng distribution charge. Ito na ang pinaka-epektibong sistema para sa electricity consumers. Iwas abala ito para hindi na isa-isahin pang bayaran ng iba't ibang kumpanya na dinadaanan ng kuryente. Naway, nabigyan linaw ko po kayo kahit papano sa inyong mga katanungan ukol sa inyong electricity bill. Hanggang sa muli, ako po si Manong Joe, ang inyong lingkod.